Nurgle cares more for his plagues and poxes than the practice of magic, though he still recognises its usefulness, and his minions wield it in battle. Their favoured lore is the Lore of Nurgle, a series of spells focused on contagions and corruption of flesh. Much like the Lore of Tzeentch, which I covered previously, the Lore of Nurgle comes with a special rule on the tabletop that affects all of its spells. The Children of Nurgle effect comes into play when a demon in Nurgle's service causes unsaved wounds to their enemies on the battlefield via magical effects. When these wounds are caused, units of plague bearers or Nurglings within 12 inches of the caster of the spell have a chance to gain additional models, based on the amount of damage caused after all saves have been performed. There are a number of ways that this could be implemented in Game 3. Perhaps the simplest would be replenishing health of nearby units, based on the amount of damage a spell causes, while a more ambitious version might see a progress bar filled as damage is inflicted, and at certain points it spawns new units of plague bearers or Nurglings. Those who practice the Lore of Nurgle could have skills that increase the effectiveness of the Children of Nurgle mechanic, making each spell provide more fuel to the progress, or having more powerful wizards be able to spawn more dangerous units. This could make the Lore of Nurgle more interesting to use on the battlefield, and open up choices around the use of magic that are more than just unlocking new spells. Well, now that we've taken a look at the Children of Nurgle special rule, which affects all of the spells cast in the lore, let's jump into the lore itself, and take a look at the individual spells we might see come to Warhammer 3. The Stream of Corruption. The caster's maw distends like a serpent before spewing forth a noxious stream of disease and filth, to choke and suffocate his closest foes. On the tabletop, the Stream of Corruption is a signature spell for Wizards of Nurgle. It is a direct damage spell that spreads out in a cone shape ahead of the caster, inflicting its damage on any units it touches, and ignoring armor saves completely. We have seen spells of this type implemented in the first 2 games already, and it would be a simple adaptation of those to add the Stream of Corruption to the game. The Miasma of Pestilence. The followers of the caster begin to emit a ghastly odour that induces crippling bouts of violent vomiting in nearby foes, quite similar to the morning after a big night out, or being forced to watch the 2016 remake of Ghostbusters. On the tabletop, this augment spell has a range of 18 inches, and may be cast upon any friendly unit within that area. Until the start of the caster's next magic phase, all enemy units in base contact with the target unit have their weapon skill and initiative reduced by 1. A more powerful version of the spell may be cast which instead reduces the weapon skill and initiative by D3, instead of that standard 1. How might this perform in game? Well, once again it seems like a simple adaptation of existing spell mechanics. The player would be able to cast the augment on a friendly unit within range, and then any enemy unit in melee combat with the target would have reduced melee attack and defense for the spell's duration. As there are no magic phases in game, and having the effect last the whole battle would be way overpowered, a reasonable duration would have to be chosen, with the player having the ability to extend the duration and increase the effect on enemy units by overcasting the spell. The Blades of Putrefaction. The wizard blesses weapons to ooze with the nastiest of Nurgle's foul contagions. This spell can be cast on models within 12 inches on the tabletop, providing them with the poisoned attack special rule while in close combat. This effect lasts until the start of the caster's next magic phase. An interesting addition to the spell occurs when the player casts it upon a unit that already uses the poisoned attack special rule. In these cases, enemy units are wounded automatically on a roll of a 5, as well as the standard 6. This would appear to be quite simple to add to Game 3, with the targeted unit gaining poison weapons for the duration of the spell. What would happen though if the targeted unit already had poison weapons? Should the unit be an invalid target, or should the amount of damage caused by the poison effect be doubled for the spell's duration? Personally, I'd like to see the latter. The Curse of the Leper. As the caster speaks, his followers are blessed with resilience, as surrounding enemies watch in horror as their own limbs wither and drop to the ground. On the tabletop, the Curse of the Leper can be cast on any unit within 18 inches, whether they be friend or foe. If cast upon a friendly unit, then the spell increases the unit's toughness by D3 until the start of the caster's next magic phase. If the spell is cast on an enemy unit, it is treated as a hex, and the target unit's toughness is reduced by D3 until the start of the caster's next magic phase. This dual-purpose spell would be unique, as I am unaware of a spell that can provide benefits on allied units and penalties to enemy units in this manner. As spells are currently configured in the database, I don't believe this is possible, so some changes would need to be made. The question is, would it be worth making those modifications for this single spell? I'd imagine that the spell won't work in quite that way, and we will instead see the Curse of the Leper implemented as a standard hex that drains the health, and perhaps even the vitality, of enemy units within the area of effect, friendly units being unaffected. Rancid Visitations. As the wizard reaches out, his enemies are seized by a terrible affliction that blackens their flesh and turns their organs to pulp. On the tabletop, this is a magic missile spell with a range of 18 inches. It inflicts D6 strength 5 hits. The targeted enemy unit must also pass a toughness test, or suffer an additional D6 strength 5 hits, and must keep taking toughness tests until they pass, or the unit is killed. Rancid Visitations would be simple to add into Warhammer 3 as a magic missile spell that causes damage upon impact, ignoring the enemy's armor. It would then continue to cause damage through some bleeding effect for a few seconds afterwards. Fleshly Abundance. The wizard generously gifts the fortunate recipient with a growth spurt of the most repulsive kind. Great mounds of grey-green fat spill out to seal wounds moments after they are formed. Fleshy Abundance is an augment spell on the tabletop, having a range of 18 inches. It provides the targeted unit with the effects of the Regeneration special rule, allowing wounds to be recovered on the roll of a 5+. If the target is already under the effects of the Regeneration rule, then wounds can be recovered on the roll of a 4+ instead. The effects of the spell last until the start of the caster's next magic phase. The caster may augment the spell at an increased casting cost to provide its effects to all units within 18 inches instead of a single target. Within Warhammer 3, this would be a simple area of effect buff that would provide all friendly units within range a small amount of regeneration. The amount that can be regained and the size of the area of effect can both be increased when overcast. Plague Wind. The wizard summons a swirling maelstrom of maggots, bile and blight-ridden fluids to eat away at his enemy's skin, flesh and soul. Plague Wind is a vortex spell that uses the small round template on the tabletop. The vortex, once placed, moves in the direction indicated by the caster, and the distance it moves is determined by the roll of an artillery dice, multiplied by the level of the wizard that cast the spell. In the event of a miscast, the vortex is placed upon the caster, and it moves 1 inch for each level of the wizard in the direction indicated by the scatter dice. All models touched by the template must pass a toughness test, or suffer a wound with no armor saves. The vortex remains on the battlefield in subsequent turns, and moves in a random direction by an amount determined by the roll of an artillery dice. If a misfire is rolled, the Plague Wind dissipates and the template is removed. The caster may choose to increase the power of the Plague Wind so that it uses the large vortex template instead. While the mechanics of the Plague Wind may sound complicated, it's really no different from many other vortex spells. When cast in game, it would head off in a random direction, causing damage to any units it hits, whether they be friend or foe. If the spell is overcast, then the duration of the vortex, or perhaps the area of effect, will be increased so it may wreak more havoc on the battlefield. The Lore of Nurgle, as described, comes from the 8th edition of the Demons of Chaos army book, and on the whole seems like quite a simple implementation into Game 3. Creative Assembly may, however, choose to adapt these spells or create completely new ones for Nurgle's magic wielding minions. Hopefully we will soon start to see some information on Nurgle, his roster, his mechanics, and his unique lore of magic. How do you think the Lore of Nurgle will shape up? Are there any spell ideas or related mechanics that you would love to see added? Please take a moment to leave a like or a comment, as the engagement will really help the channel, as YouTube will push this video out to more people and make them suffer. If you are not subscribed, then why not consider doing so? I create Warhammer videos on a variety of topics, so there's a good chance you will find something of interest. Time now to announce the results for last Wednesday's Guess Who community post. Each Wednesday I post images of characters or units from Warhammer 2 in silhouette, and the community can choose to test their knowledge. Those who figure out who or what the images are get a shout out in the video on the following Monday. So, to the results. The first image is Malagor, enjoying his newfound ability to fly. Second, there is a unit of Iron Drakes, getting ready to roast some goblins. And finally there are some Dark Elves, taking a Cold One chariot out for a spin. Well done to memes of Warhammer, Sam Cadwallader, and Vincil Powell for getting all three, some in their own descriptive way, such as the flying cow and dwarves packing heat. And thanks to all who participated. This video was brought to you with the aid of my patrons. Thank you to Hot Apple Pie, Alexander, and Solarith Magnetar. I'm Grey Tiger, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.